Hi. So Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump won the New Hampshire primaries. And while that may have surprised a few people, it didn't surprise me at all. Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are basically flip sides of economic instability. The people who vote for either one of them essentially want the government to focus on domestic issues. They're also concerned about their future economically. The only difference is who they blame. If you're the Democrats, you blame corporations, so you want to tax them more and then redistribute the wealth in ways that benefit you, such as, lowered college tuition and so on. If you're Donald Trump, you blame immigration. You blame the offshoring of manufacturing jobs. And that's why his base, if you look at it, a lot of them are in places that have been devastated by the shift in the U.S. from a manufacturing-based economy into a services-based economy. Both of these sides don't really understand what's actually happened over the last 25, 30 years. And I wouldn't even know it myself if I hadn't been able to work for a couple of Fortune 50 companies and then a few law firms. The reason college tuition is going up in many states, such as California, is because of very complex legal maneuvers made by special interest groups. When I say special interest groups, almost nobody understands what I mean by that. It's not just corporations, it's unions. One of the major union groups actually filed an amicus brief in support of Citizens United. If you don't know that, you're already at a loss in terms of understanding the full picture. Why would they do that? Because in California, the teachers' unions, as standing alone as an individual lobbyist, is the number one lobbyist. If you know that, then you can deduce that they also have a lot of political influence. So over time, post-Proposition 98, the teachers' unions caused the Democratic legislature to pass a law that says that no matter what the revenues look like, 40% of all state operating budget funding must go to K through 12 education. Well, sometimes 40% is not enough to cover all the expenses. It depends on how much the actual revenue is. So in some years, it's not 40%, it's 50%. Sometimes it could be even more, hypothetically, but usually it's between 40 and 50%. That number does not include lotto money, federal money, local property taxes. We're talking about an industry, and I call that an industry, between 40 and 80 billion dollars every single year. Where's that money going? Part of it goes to the massive pension funds, which assume, no matter what, that they will earn 7.5% interest every single year. No matter what. If they don't do it, they have to bridge the gap somehow. And in most cases, they have a choice between cutting new member benefits. They can't touch the existing member benefits. They can touch people coming in. You see that played out in a couple of ways, not just in teachers, but in almost every other government position. You see that with more contract work. You see that with more temp work. I'm trying to apply right now with government jobs, and I've never seen this many temp jobs. But that's a consequence when you have so much money being diverted into the back end of the compensation system. So that's, again, something that people don't understand on the Bernie Sanders side. The other option, of course, is to raise taxes. But, it's becoming more and more difficult to do that in a state like California that already has pretty high taxes. So Bernie Sanders tries to get around that by saying that he's going to tax the rich. If you do the math, there aren't enough rich people who declare enough income. And I'm not saying wealth. You can't take their wealth. You can't just go in and take their houses, right? So you have to tax their income. Rich people have the best lawyers. They can hide their assets. They can hide their income, or at least make it difficult to tax. That's not going to change because, again, it's extremely complex. I can't get into it now, but it involves subsidiaries. It involves, not necessarily offshoring, but it involves something as simple as, I have $1 million. I'm going to go to the bank. I'm going to take out a loan on my house that's also $1 million. And rather than spend the $1 million that's coming in, I'm going to tap into my equity line, which I'm being charged interest for. Why would I do that? Because that's a deduction, right? So I can actually offset my income. So if I make $1 million, but I'm charged interest of $100,000, that's not going to be that much. But you can see that I can very quickly, instead of having $1 million on paper, I can show the government that I'm actually, making less than $1 million by this simple tactic. It's not just that. That's the simple one. Well, what about Donald Trump? Again, his supporters don't understand that the economy has changed. It's not going to go back to a manufacturing-based economy. We can try to get it back up, but it's got to start in the schools. A lot of schools don't have any vocational programs. That's one reason why Apple Computers hires people in China, because they still have that manufacturing know-how. So Donald Trump's supporters have a point, right? They're saying that, look at all this knowledge, it's all being given away. We know how to build all these things, but we don't see our kids able to pick up the same skills. What are we doing? Why are we giving away all this expertise to other countries? Well, the answer is they have 1 billion people. I mean, it's obviously going to be a lot easier to sell Coca-Cola and McDonald's to that many people versus the U.S. It's all about expansion. That's what capitalism is about, expanding the customer base. So part of that is actually the opposite of Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump ticks off people. You go to McDonald's in Malaysia, it says halal right there. McDonald's adapts everywhere it goes because it doesn't care about somebody's background. It only wants to sell you something. And because it wants to sell you something, all it cares about is one color, green. Or in Malaysia, different colors. They have nice looking currency. So again, if you really think about it, if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, the corporations are the ones that are more likely to be less racist, less, caring about immigration, because for one thing, they need immigration. They need skilled people to come in. That's the part that Donald Trump supporters don't understand. We don't have a lot of engineering, or scientific talent in terms of different things like manufacturing. We don't have that skill set, and if we do, in many cases, it's not spread out. In some cases, we might need a specific, skill set, and although we might have it, it's not always true that person with the skill set is going to apply for the job. So the immigration system is set up to make it really easy for companies to get the talent they need. It would be nice to have a situation where somebody came up with an app that said, what do you need? What positions do you need to fill in? Let's try to match it up so that we can send one resume nationwide. So if somebody has that skill set in Kansas, they can send their resume to California. And then maybe Intel or all these other companies, which, by the way, make most of their money selling overseas now. That's again, another reason why so much of this is moving offshore, is because that's where the money is. So that's what Donald Trump supporters don't understand. They don't understand the economy has already shifted. When you do something that contains data on your phone, it goes somewhere in India. And just because somebody in Bangalore, is working on it, the data might not even be there. The data might be on a server in London. And now you've got to comply with EU regulations. Well, can anybody, can any of the Donald Trump supporters, discuss that? And I'm betting the majority would not know what to say in that circumstance, right? But that's where the jobs are going because of globalization. So what's happening is the guy who would have otherwise built a car in Arkansas, right, now needs a skill set that is completely different, how to interpret EU law, because that's where the economy is going. And unfortunately, we are stuck in our educational system in so many ways, right? Part of it is what I just talked about. We don't have vocational programs. There are a lot of kids out there, a lot of teenagers with a lot of skill sets. They may not be able to do algebra or trigonometry, but they can build things. Why are they not given the opportunity to do so? A lot of people that can learn farming beyond just the 4-H club. Why are they not given support? These are the issues that Donald Trump supporters are focused on. And when Bernie Sanders supporters ignore these issues, there's always going to be a gap. There's always going to be a schism between two sides. And all that's going to do is drive both sides farther and farther apart. That's not what should be happening. People should be able to think and figure out what the issues are and move on. The more you blame Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders or whatever, you're not focusing on the causes of why they're popular. You're just focusing on the symptom. They're not to blame. They're just there because of all these other issues. But primarily, the problem is you. Most people, when I talk to them, don't have even a rudimentary understanding of the facts. You talk to anybody who supports, say teachers unions, ask them, in California, what percentage of the operating budget on the state level goes to K through 12 education? I've yet to meet maybe more than 2 people that know the right answer. And then what's sad is that to know the right answer, It's easy to find. You Google Governor California budget, and then you can see the governor's proposed budget in a PDF with a pie chart. You don't even have to read it. But that's just a start, because then you don't know about the interplay between different districts that have exemptions from different funding mechanisms. You don't know about all the laws. You don't know about local property taxes, lotto money. How does all that get divided? That's the discussion we should be having, the more complex discussion. But we can't get there because people don't have the basic facts. And that's the problem with America today. That's what's stopping us from becoming great again.